Thanks for checking into the State of Basketball Podcast, episode 14. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaron Wilt each and every week, where we will be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I basketball schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball. So before we get into things, I just want to, thank you if you're watching or listening on, watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast streaming service, and provide the reminder that if you give us a thumbs up on YouTube, like the video, subscribe if you haven't, give us a 5-star rating on the podcast audio services. Yeah. Because the more support that we get from y'all, the more that we're able to grow. We've got a lot of great content plans for the next, for this coming off season, but also just in the future, for the future of the show. The more support we have, the more we make those things happen. So if you know anyone that you think might even like our content as well, please share that with them, because the more support that we can get, the better content we can provide, and the more the show can continue to grow.
Yeah, treat it like an MLM, like a pyramid scheme, where the more people you tell about us, like the better content you get, right? So the more people you tell, all the people in your downline are helping make better content for you, right? So it's just like that.
Yeah, it's a great analogy, Adam.
I've always wanted to be thought of as like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely, it was number one on my bucket list for the state of basketball to be considered a MLM. So
exactly.
Thanks for bringing that up.
We always want some, constructive feedback. If you've got any suggestions or think we need to do something differently, let us know in the comments. Just be gentle, because my ego is very fragile.
Very fragile.
So, if the next episode I'm crying, that means that someone left a comment that might have been helpful, but maybe mean too. So be nice with me. I'm very, very fragile.
Yes, he is. It's not fragile. Our power rankings.
I mean, they change every week. So
but this week they didn't change very much. So
you still put a chip in a glass. It's still not great, right? It's changed.
I mean, depends on how you look at it.
Oh, you just turn it?
Yeah, exactly.
You just turn it?
Exactly.
Don't drink from the side that cuts your lip.
Exactly. Plus, if the glass is half empty, chips at the top, there's no impact.
Okay. Okay, sure.
Am I wrong?
I was thinking of like a drinking glass, and like if the chips at the top, it still has to go through the top to come out.
Not if you twist it around.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, Adam hates me.
What else is new?
I'm going to list off our power rankings for the week 12 of the season. So, at number 11, we have the University of Southern Indiana. Number 10, got IUPUI. Number 9, Valparaiso. They moved down this week.
Yeah, just close losses, but just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, and then transversely, number 8 is Evansville, who moved up.
That's without Ben Humrickhouse, Evansville, by the way. Moving up without him.
Big steps for them. Big steps for them. Number 7 is Purdue Fort Wayne. Number 6, Notre Dame, moving down from last week. Number 5, breaking our top 5 for I think the first time this season.
Can't confirm or deny.
Is Ball State moving up. Then number 4, Indiana. Number 3 is Butler. Number 2, to no surprise, Indiana State. And then number 1, Purdue.
It's a solid top 4 that have stayed the same for a long time. Top 3 for a long time now. I don't know how long Indiana's been at that 4 spot, but it seems like those top 4, just based on their resume, are going to stay there for a while.
Yeah, I really don't see them dropping.
Looking at like the 5 and 6 spot, Ball State and Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame.
If Notre Dame can start stringing together some of these,
Notre Dame just has so many close losses.
Yeah,
like so many almost games. Some like same with Southern Indiana. Like Southern Indiana could realistically be 7th or 8th.
Absolutely.
They just if they have like 5 or 6 one possession games that they've lost. If they win all of those, they're easily top 7.
Yeah, we're looking at a completely different power ranking here.
Yeah.
If they're able to pull those off, same with Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame has a lot of potential, especially going back to you bringing them up. But again, those close losses, they've kind of thrown away a couple games that they were leading. and that's kind of had that impact on their slight descent in the power rankings. But
I did not run this by you before we did this, and feel free to say no. What if we mix it up this week and we do it in order of the power rankings? Feel free to say no. Feel free to say no.
Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
Do you want to go 1 to 11? Talk about the best teams first, or do you want to talk 11 to 1?
When we do the power rankings, we go 11 to 1. So I think that we can now, snake draft it.
Yeah.
And go 1 through 11. So we're gonna start with Purdue. They
scroll for a long time.
Are at a steady 2 spot in KenPom. They did go 2-0 this week, bringing their overall record to 19-2 with an 8-2 conference record, which I believe has them in second place. Sole possession of second place in the Big Ten, I believe.
Yes.
They did have a huge win over Michigan, 99-67. And then
can we count it, though? Doug McDaniel is suspended for road games. So, I mean,
it still counts.
I guess in the record column. What an absolutely silly thing. Suspended only for road games.
Well, I mean, you got to think that I think it's because of academic reasons, and when the coach is not around, it's a lot, and the team's not around, it allows him to focus on his athletics, which makes absolutely zero sense.
That whole program is just, I don't know, man. They gave up something, and they gave up the basketball team and to win that national championship in football or something, because that basketball team is a mess.
Yeah, but that's okay. We don't talk about Michigan.
Yeah, but they got absolutely boat raced by Purdue.
Yes, they did. And then Purdue also got the elusive road win at the Rack against Rutgers, 68-60.
It's been a house of horrors for not just Purdue, but for the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
IU lost there again this year. And, I was a little worried when I saw Ron Harper Jr. in the stands. I was like, this is an omen.
Well, this was only Purdue's third win over Rutgers in the last 8 times they've played, home or away.
Yeah.
So,
is it because Purdue wasn't ranked number 1? Did that get the monkey off their back?
I think so.
Probably.
I think that's a big thing. We talked about it last week, is the last 2 meetings for Purdue in the Rack, Purdue was number 1, and they lost both those games. So
I don't want to focus too long on the Michigan game just because it was quick, but I mean, they didn't get to 100. They stopped at 99. I don't know, just kind of a respect thing. I'm sure the fans were a little disappointed in the audience, but they already ran up the score on them.
Yeah.
Based on, you don't need to run it up even more. That's just kind of how the game went. But
I think one cool snippet from that game, for me at least, was that in the game, Purdue had a 1.41 points per possession, which was Purdue's highest against a Big Ten opponent since having a 1.47 points per possession in 2022. So it's the 6th highest points per possession against a Big Ten team in Purdue school history.
That's awesome.
I think is
and they did
cool.
it. They did it without Edey didn't score for like the first 12 minutes. Yeah, he still finished with 16 and 10. So you saw people like Lance Jones took over. He had 24. Braden Smith had 11 and 10 assists and 7 boards. He's gonna get the triple double.
I think he'll get a triple double before Braden Smith.
That's who I was talking about, Braden Smith.
Oh, I thought you were saying Lance Jones's.
Jones had 24.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes.
Jones
Smith will get one.
He will get one.
Lance Jones has just been playing out of his mind.
Lance
lately.
Jones almost got a double-double without even including points
against Rutgers. Yeah.
But they shot the ball really well. I mean, 13 out of the 15 people who played scored, and you saw people like Miles Colvin come in and hit 3 threes.
Miles Colvin, I don't think has been getting a lot of.
He's been
playing time.
No,
lately.
He's not been getting a lot because I mean, they've been, I don't know, like Lance Jones and Braden Smith have been playing super well, and when like I feel like when Lawyer's not playing super well, he'll be in there, or they'll like kind of put Lance at the 2 and have like Morton in, or they'll have, kind of like First and Gillis in there for a second, or he'll do some funky lineups and he'll work it out where he's got enough guys. So Colvin has not seen a lot of play time. Cam Heidi's been playing and stuff.
Yep.
But so then they went and they won at Rutgers, and it was a little scary in the second half. Rutgers was making it a game, and I hate watching Rutgers basketball. It's ugly. It's just disgusting to watch. It's just so boring. I mean, you're looking at a Purdue team who just put up 99 in the last game, and they scored 68. The score is 33-20 at half.
Yeah,
it's ugly basketball, and that's how they thrive. Like, that's where Rutgers lives. That's exactly the kind of game Rutgers wants.
Pikell, that's just him. That's his game.
Yeah, I hate it though. But Edey, congrats, past 2,000 points.
Yep. So he's the 6th player in Big Ten conference history to have 2,000 points and 1,000 boards.
Some prestigious company.
There's also the Rack. I think we might have mentioned it last week very briefly. The Rack was the last away arena that Edey had not won in.
Yeah,
so he got that checked off his list.
Yeah, that senior class has now won in every single Big Ten venue, which is impressive.
Very.
That's nice that they got to play at Rutgers. His final year.
Imagine if
Edey comes back. Edey comes back just to do it. He comes back and
maybe is that why he came back this year?
Yeah, he said it's not for the national championship. It's for the
it's to win at the Rack.
But now Edey. So like I said, the game was ugly. I mean, you could see it. Like, they shot 5 of 19 from 3, so they shot like 26%. And they shot 49% from the field. So not terrible from the field, but just horrible from 3. And they've had some hot or cold nights on the 3-point line, but I think that's just how Rutgers wants you to play.
Yeah.
And they played how Rutgers wanted to play. And I think that the big difference for me is if this game happens with last year's roster, they 100% lose.
I think so.
Purdue 100% loses because they had Lance Jones in this game score 4 points, but he had 10 boards, 8 assists, and 5 steals. He had 8 of their 12 assists.
Yeah, which is usually you see Braden Smith kind of leading in the assist category. Mm-hmm. That's what I was saying. The way Lance Jones has been playing, it almost makes me think that he could potentially sneak past Braden and to get the triple-double first.
It'll make it interesting.
But I do think that Braden obviously has the edge there.
He's just a difference maker for this team.
Yeah.
But one last thing I have is that Edey is now tied with Rick Mount for the most games in a row in double figures at 72 in Purdue history. So next game he will pass the legendary Rick Mount in consecutive double figure games. Probably, I would assume. I don't know. I don't know who their next game is.
We'll think Northwestern.
Yeah. So at home.
Yeah.
At home. So it should happen. It's more likely that if he's done it 72 times in a row, it should happen. So props to him. Anything else you have about Purdue?
No. Now I
talk about the Sycamores.
Let me tell you, going in and power ranking order is going to be kind of hard because
I know. We're going to have to think on the fly.
Yeah.
We got to keep us on our toes,
Indiana State, they moved up in KenPom. They're currently 37th. Last week they were 43. They went 2-0 this week with an 18-3 overall record. They're 9-1 with sole possession of the Valley.
Yeah. Big week. So this week they had 2 games and then they had a game on Sunday. So they had 3 games from Sunday to Saturday. So they had 3 games in 7 days. So that's a tough week.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have 1 or 2 games next week. I think it's 2, but they have some days off. And Josh Schertz after their home win against Bradley was talking we got home at 4 a.m. from Chicago, had a day off and had a 1-day scout for this and turned it around, which is saying a lot about the team that, they were tough enough to make it happen. And they're just so good.
Yeah.
They're just so good.
Yeah. So rewinding just a little bit. So I mentioned they went 2-0 this week. They had a win at University of Illinois, Chicago, which Adam is alluding to.
And UIC is not great. We saw Valpo beat them.
Yep.
But
it was only a 6-point game. It was 89-83. Indiana State obviously pulled it off.
Yeah. Poor shooting night, really. And the Flames were just, no pun intended, but they were on fire. They were just sticking with Indiana State the whole time.
Yep. And then they did, with that 1 day of scout turnaround, beat Bradley 95-86.
Mm-hmm. Both were really, really good games. Close games. The Valley is a conference that you could slip up anywhere.
Yep.
especially on the road, and the fact that they, got out of Chicago with a win and then they came home and got an overtime win to a sellout crowd is huge. So in the UIC game, Swope had 30, that's his career high, and Avila had 26 and 11, and he had 0 turnovers in that game. So just like a really nice game where people took over. Swope took over, Avila took over, and they just got it done, and that's really what you need this team to do.
Yeah, and I think with that win, it put their record at 17-3, right, which is one of the best in college basketball currently.
Yeah.
And their win percentage of 850 is top 15. Obviously, some teams have played more, some teams have played less than 20 games at that point in the season, right? So pretty awesome that they're a top 15 winning team, or win percentage team, and they did get an AP vote last week. I don't think we talked about that. I think it's their first week this season where they've gotten at least one.
And I think they got just one.
Yep. So good for them. They're finally getting the attention of AP voters AP voter.
Yeah.
At this point, but I think that this team they're just right there on the edge. That I think in the next couple of weeks they could break that top 25, which we've been advocating for. I think we're one of few. It's we're one of few media people advocating for them to be the top 25.
If you pay attention to mid-major basketball, that they need to be, if not ranked higher up in the rankings.
Yep.
But this is just a good win at Bradley. They completed a sweep of Bradley, and this brought them to having the number 1 effective field goal percentage in the country. They're number 2 in 3-point percentage and 2-point percentage. So they're 7th in free throw or something.
Yeah.
So the team's offense is obviously amazing. If you look at where they can improve, it's the defensive end. But in this game, every starter was in double figures. Conwell had 22, Swope had 19, Avila had 18, Kent had 17, Larry had 14, and Kent had 16 boards. So it was just, a complete, the starting 5 is just so dominant. Very short bench. But they needed that, that bench, because when I think it was Larry, someone went out. Larry fouled out, and they should have won. First of all, they should have won the game in regulation, because Larry got a steal, and they called a foul on, him after he had gotten the steal. It felt like a late whistle to me, but then they come out in overtime, and Larry fouls out, and Bledson comes in. I don't know when the last time he checked into the game was, but he comes in cold off the bench and just drains a 3. Just hits this 3 and just carry that momentum into the overtime. And I think the crowd was huge. Having that sellout crowd was what they needed for that boost in this, that third game in 7 days.
Well, and think about this. You talk about their scoring, right? It's always impressive. We know the team can score. They did tie the Sycamores, the team, historically, tied their low in turnovers with 6. They did have 6 earlier this season, a couple weeks ago on the 16th of January against Missouri State. But, think about it. Jason Kent played 45 minutes, 0 turnovers.
Yeah.
He did not leave the floor, right? Isaiah Swope
he's the heart and soul of this team, dude.
Yeah. Isaiah Swope played 42 minutes and 37 seconds, 0 turnovers. Ryan Conwell, 43 minutes, almost just under 44 minutes, 1 turnover. So that's not only are they scoring the ball, but they're being sure-handed with the ball, which I think is also what's helping them get a lot of these wins.
You look at their one loss in conference, they turned it over 17 times or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But I do have one question for you. So if we're talking about concerns for this team, fatigue, will that be a factor down the stretch going into Arch Madness? I think when you get to the tournament, their tournament will be earlier than, some big power conferences tournaments. I don't know what day the Arch Madness ends, but they're going to, if they're going to win the Arch Madness, they're going to be playing multiple games in consecutive days. They are 357th in bench minutes in the nation. They basically run 5-6 guys, and sometimes Mason Miller gets in.
Yeah.
Are you worried about fatigue for them?
Yes, I think to counter that though, as long as they stay number one in the conference, as long as they finish with the number one seed, I think that's going to help them because it'll give them I believe, I don't know the exact format, but it should give them a day or so of rest before then. So they should be playing fewer games in the tournament, right?
Yeah.
Because they're the number one seed, which will help, and then playing, earlier than most conference tournaments. There's going to be a break afterwards going into March Madness.
Yeah.
Should they win?
I'm not worried about them in the NCAA tournament. I'm worried about them, if they start to fatigue out as the season ends and they drop a couple.
Yeah.
And then they're fatigued in the in the NBC tournament and they don't win. Maybe they drop one or two too many. And then the NBC is a one bid league.
Right. Yeah. I do think that there are concerns there. I think weeks like they had just had where they had,
3 games
in a week. Yes, they're not playing 3 games in back-to-back days, but I think it helps. But I agree. I do have genuine concerns about their fatigue just because they don't.
And I'm not saying
have a deep bent.
I'm not saying it's gonna be an issue. I'm just saying it's something to keep an eye on because you saw North Carolina when they went to the national championship game against Kansas and they were leading at halftime and they basically played 5 guys.
Yep.
In the second half of that national championship game, I don't know if it was Bill Self or if it was the team was just too tired. The fatigue got caught up to them or whatever. I'm not saying it's necessarily a concern I have. It's something to watch out for. If you see them drop a few games, I don't expect them to, but if they do, that could be a factor for me.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree with you.
That's something I want to keep an eye on as we go forward. But let's talk about Butler, Jaron.
Yes.
So
Bulldogs.
Butler moved up in KenPom 10 spots. They had a 2-0 week, and they are 14-7 overall, and they're 5-5 in the Big East, which is
pretty good.
They need to be 500, probably a little bit better to make the tournament, but they got a good win over Villanova, who's been up and down, but I mean, that's a game you just can't lose if you want to make it into the tournament because it's at home. They won that game 88-81 in double overtime, and then they won as expected at Georgetown 90-66. So, good week for them. What do you think about the Bulldogs?
Yeah, I mean, I was most excited about the Villanova game. I think that was obviously a much bigger game.
Yeah, the Georgetown game is I shouldn't have to tune into this. It shouldn't be on my radar to be paying super close attention to.
Yeah, I think a couple things that stood out to me in that Georgetown game was Pierre Brooks, over the last 6 games, he's shooting 23 for 40 from 3, so it's 58%. He's definitely, we've talked about him a lot, obviously, from a scoring perspective, but he's that's huge. That he's coming alive, and I think that's really going to help propel them as we get a little deeper into the Big East play. And they only had 8 turnovers, which is, not super shocking from Butler. They typically handle the ball pretty well, but they've had 10 or fewer turnovers in 11 of their games this season. So that's something that's definitely, I think, helping them win a lot of these games.
Yeah, especially when you look at, we were concerned about rebounding with them.
Yep.
But if you take care of the ball and you can shoot it well, you don't really have to worry about rebounding too much. You can get away with not rebounding the ball if you shoot it better and you take care of the ball.
Yeah. Is there anything else from the Georgetown game that kind of stood out from you? Or stood out to you?
Just Pierre Brooks. In both games he was in double figures, so he's every single game this year double figures for him. So good. I want to see him run the table with that.
Yeah.
I just hope he does.
Yeah. But that Villanova game, right? Adam said it was double overtime win. One, if you're playing Butler in double overtime or overtime in Hinkle in general, just say GG.
Yeah.
It's a wrap. They're 2-0 in double overtime, 3-0 in home overtime games. They are 3-1 overall in overtime games. They did lose one on the road.
2.
I don't remember who they lost to.
I'll find it for you real quick. Just keep going.
But yeah, if you're playing extra time against
Providence.
Butler, that's right.
And that's where they got just.
I don't think they scored in overtime.
Yeah, they got destroyed in overtime, but they should have had it in regulation.
Yeah, that's just a team that, Thad Matta, one of the greatest of all time.
Yep.
He knows how to coach a team for 40 minutes, but also 45 minutes, 50 minutes, depending on how many overtimes you're playing. So
yeah,
great showing there. Really interesting little snippet that I found. Butler scored 40 points in the first 31 minutes of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They then scored 48 points over the final 18 minutes.
Yeah,
so
they had a slow start. Would they start down like a 10-0 or 11-0?
I think
yeah, they went 0 for 10 to start the game.
Yeah, but they turned it on late in the game, which you don't see often especially when you're playing extra time like that. They showed up.
Second half and the overtimes were really big for them. They started slow, especially if your name is DJ Davis,
yep,
who had 28 points in the game, and he had 0
in the first
at halftime.
Yep.
So tied a career high there, which is awesome. Telfort had 22 and 11, and DJ Davis is second in the country in free throw percentage right now. He missed his first free throw in Big East play.
Yep.
He was perfect. So he's 67 of 70 on the season.
And you didn't mention it though when you talk about Telfort hitting his career high. It was also his first career double-double. So
shout out to the man.
Yeah, that was
I mean a good week for them. If you're looking, they're flirting with the bubble just because the Big East is tough and they needed to do, like, their non-conference was okay. I mean, they got wins over Texas Tech, which is aging great.
Like fine wine.
Yeah. That Boise State win looks really good, but they lost to Florida Atlantic, which would have been a great win to have as well. But then they lost to Michigan State, which they would have liked to have had. And then, they dropped that game to Providence. And there's just been a couple of games that they needed to have. Like if they flip that Providence game, they're pretty safely in the tournament, I feel like, at this point. But just try and go a little bit better than 500 and you should be fine.
But even that Providence loss is aging pretty well.
Yeah.
Just because Providence is really turning it around and they're playing real well in the Big East. So
yeah, and you've got another Big East is a true round robin, so you've got another opportunity to come in and take
up for that.
Take them at home. But next should be
Indiana.
The Hoosiers.
Yeah. The Hoosiers, who moved up for the first time in a long time
on KenPom.
They are 93, up from 96. They did go 0-1. They did take the loss. They're 12-8 overall with a 4-5 conference record. Lost at Illinois, close game, 70-62. Probably could have pulled it off. Khalil Ware did not play. I think that was a huge difference maker from them. But this is, to me, the best the Hoosiers have looked in a couple weeks.
Yeah. You can't have moral victories at this point in the season.
No.
Unless you're unless you're calling the season dead, you can call this a moral victory or whatever. But I don't think the season's done. I think that they showed life.
Yeah.
They showed that, they're not giving up. They played without their starting center. Ware was out again. Sounds like he might be back next game.
That's what people are saying.
But things I liked about this game: small ball.
Yeah,
they played small, and it worked way better.
Yeah, it was impressive. I mean, we've been I don't know if we said it on the show.
We talked about it,
but we've definitely talked about it to each other that, Mike Woodson, when he was hired, he preached his 4-out, 1-in offense. We have not seen that in his tenure at Indiana. Makes a difference when you've got Race Thompson and TJD in the lineup with guys that you just can't not start, right? And then obviously this year they've got Khalil Ware coming in as a 7-footer who's been playing outstanding.
But
and Malik
he can play, Renew can hit it, can hit threes. Yeah. He's shown. And Ware can. They just need to commit. Even if you're playing Ware and Renew, just put him out on the perimeter and run the same kind of stuff you were running. I just liked that. I mean, you would assume that since they played smaller, they were going to hit more threes. That didn't happen.
They didn't hit any threes.
They had something they had in common with IUPUI this week. They had a game where they both hit 0 threes. And I think they only took 8 or 6, something.
I thought it might have been 9. Indiana shot 9 threes.
Regardless, it doesn't matter how many they shot. They missed them all.
Yeah.
And
Got to get one to fall.
You're not, like, as close as they were to winning, you're not going to win a road game not hitting a single three.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not going to happen. So Indiana showed life. Indiana has to keep on building on that. Xavier Johnson was back in the starting lineup. He looked a ton better. And I think that unfortunately his reputation is hurting him.
Yeah.
Because he's had those couple of flagrants. He got the absolute stupidest technical where he right at the buzzer at halftime, he went up for a layup, missed it, got his own rebound and put it in, and then, you know, jumped up again, presumably thinking, oh, if I miss it again, I'm gonna grab the rebound again.
Especially because time was expiring.
Yeah, he caught it and he tossed it, and Coleman Hawkins wasn't looking, and it hit Coleman Hawkins in the chest, and dude was ready to fight, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So they gave him a tech, and I thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
People do that in every single game. Every game.
I see it all the time.
It's ridiculous.
I think that the thing about it was, fortunately, like you said, his reputation. Yep. Time was expiring too, so I'm sure that was a factor that.
But still, he gave the ball to Illinois. You know, if he had hit it anywhere else, or if I've seen people get warnings for like putting the ball on the ground. You know, that's understandable. Give them warning for that. But like this,
to me, that's a pace of play thing. He's just trying to keep the game going. Yeah. But you know, I will say with this game, Indiana is 0-2 in rivalry games this season.
Shut up.
For those of you who don't know, that Illinois views everyone as their rival. Yeah. I think. I don't know. And there's a lot of chatter last season, especially when Indiana was going to play in Champaign, about it being a rivalry game. Yeah. It's very much not a rivalry game.
It's a rivalry game for Illinois. They can have whatever rivalry they want.
But I wanted to throw that in there just because I think it's funny.
Their shade. Let's talk about Ball State. So they are 5th in our power rankings, and they went 2-0 this week. So they had a really good week. They're 11-9 overall, 3-5 in the MAC, and they started 0-4. Yeah, they started 0-4, and then they got this win at Buffalo, 87-59. And Buffalo sucks, but you need a road win. It was a huge road win. Yeah, you need to build some confidence, and they, unlike their last road win, they brought that home and continued that, you know, momentum. They won over Northern Illinois 81-71. So Ball State went 2-0 for the first time in a while.
Yeah, they moved up 21 spots in KenPom. They're currently at 252, up from 276 where they were.
And still not where they should be in KenPom. Like, not where they should be. They should be better than this.
Yeah.
The team's a lot better than 252.
Yep.
But in both games, Jihad was great. In the Buffalo game, he had 20 and 9 and 4 or 5 from 3. So he's stretching the floor, you know, just
beautifully,
getting that offense rolling nice. And Mickey Pearson had another great game. He's a guy that we've talked about all the time, saying he's got to play well. When you look at the games when they lose, and Mickey Pearson is usually like having a bad game to non-existent.
Yep.
So he's just got to play well, and he did.
But, Ben Hendricks, he had 10 points. That's about. Didn't have much else on the stat column. I think he had 2 boards, but he was playing in front of a huge fan section. His family and some family friends came down from Ontario, I believe, to watch the game in Buffalo. So that was good for him to show up. You know, we talked about him earlier this season. You know, he started to come alive after having some pretty rough previous seasons. So, you know, seeing him perform that way in front of a lot of family and friends, I think is always a win.
Yeah.
So,
and then in Northern Illinois, they just controlled the glass 40-29, and Northern Illinois only went 4 of 18 from 3. So the defense is on point. Jihad again, great night, 28 and 14. And they just shot the ball really well. So they were up 20 at one point, and they just kind of dominated from start to finish, which is what we need to see from them. They need to continue that going forward.
Northern, even when they were faced with some adversity late in the game, Northern Illinois had a couple possessions where it was just back to back.
Yeah, they made
multiple baskets made, and they cut it down to I think 6 with like a minute to go or 2 minutes to go. Mm-hmm. But it was, you know, Ball State, they took that adversity head on. They locked it in and pulled it off, which is I think definitely something that's important for them.
Yeah, I mean, we saw them, Miami of Ohio, they lost that game when they were up at home. They were up and then they lost the lead. And we didn't see that here. So we're seeing progress from this team.
Yeah, and then they dominated the glass, too. I mean,
yep.
They
like 40, 11 or 12 more.
Yeah, it was 40 rebounds, 29, and then obviously points in the paint as well, 42 to 26. So
positive signs in Muncie.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about Notre Dame then, who is trying to compete with Southern Indiana, apparently. Notre Dame's trying to compete with Southern Indiana for the most close losses. So they went 0-2 this week, unfortunately. They dropped in KenPom to 164 from 151. And so they're 7-13 overall, and they're 2-7 in the conference in the ACC. So Notre Dame lost to Miami 73-61 at home, and then they lost to Boston College again. Like, didn't they lose to Boston College in a one possession or like a 4 or 5 point game again in Boston? This time they dropped the game at home by 3, 61-58. It's just, I know it's year one, but it's like, it's heartbreaking because there's so much promise. There's so much
absolutely
that we're seeing that is like, good. It just feels like they're a couple of years away.
Yeah.
And especially if he keeps his crew together.
Yeah. I think the thing that was shocking to me, right, when you've got a point guard like Marcus Burton, who always is passing the ball, he's got several assists every game. Logan Imes, 4 assists, which was a team high, which that was against Miami.
Yeah.
Not great. That's a concern for me because they strive off of ball movement and getting open guys to open shots, and that didn't happen against Miami. But,
yeah, I mean, they were, they shot 29%, so it might just be a result of, like a byproduct of people not hitting shots.
Yeah.
But, things like they were tied in turnovers and rebounds. Miami had this like 17-2 run late in the game and just kind of took it away from them. Yeah. And this is an experienced Miami team. A team that pieces of this team were in the Final Four last year. So they're having not as great of a year this year as they did last year, but they're still good and they've still got a good coach.
Yeah. And one thing that stood out to me too about the Miami game was it was perfect to me, perfect utilization of the auto bench with 2 fouls. Burton had 2 early fouls.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that needs to be on the court for Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
Needs to be. Got benched. Was only on the bench for a few minutes. Came back in and he provided an offensive spark with, about halfway through the through the first half.
I was glad he didn't leave him there. People.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like I talked about it a couple weeks ago. It might have even been last week of you've got guys, some of your best guys, picking up 2 fouls early and then you bench them for the rest of the half.
And then that's just not. And then the game gets away from you.
Everything goes dead. And I think that's why I call it to me a perfect use because it, he went to the bench to cool down, compose himself, but you put him back in the same half just to get back into rhythm because when they were in it for a lot of the game, they only lost by 12, which is not. That's
attainable. and they were in it for most of the second half.
Yeah,
but Boston College game, just heartbreaking. Lose by 3. J.R. Knesny had 15 and Shrewsbury had 14. But Burton, 7 assists in this game. But just got killed in the fast break, 11-2. Shot it not much better, 8 of 26 from 3. Just didn't shoot great. And they're like the 6 losses that they've taken this month in January have been by an average margin of 6.3 points.
Yeah, I was getting ready to bring that up too. It's just that's heartbreaking.
That just tells you they're so close. There's a run late in the game, or they miss like in this one, where they miss a shot like close to the buzzer. Njai had a shot to a 3 to. They Shrews hits a 3 when they're down 6. They get a steal and they miss the game tying 3 to send it to overtime.
Yeah, and it was a wide Njai was wide open at the top of the key. He just missed.
Yeah. It's just
heartbreaking.
It hurts my feelings, man.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't respond to Shrewsbury's talk earlier in the season, they aren't even in these games. They're responding. They're just not winning. And the fact that they're still losing close tells me that they haven't given up, which I like to see that from this team and, well, from any team, but especially this one who's so young.
And a team that hadn't given up. They were on the ropes for the last few weeks. Purdue Fort Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
They finally got a win. They moved up 11 spots in KenPom. They're currently at 170. They went 1-0 this week. They only played one game. 14-7 overall. 5-5 in the Horizon.
They needed that week off though.
Yeah. So they won at Northern Kentucky 63-58. And
Go ahead.
It was also they won on national TV.
Good for them.
I believe it's their only nationally televised game of this season because the next closest would have been the DePaul game, and that was on Fox Sports 2, which is not nationally televised. Obviously, the tournament, the Horizon League tournament might be. I don't know for sure what the TV slate is for that, but
me neither.
They won on national TV, so that's good.
Yeah,
they're on ESPNU.
The thing that stood out to me in this game was that in a couple of the games that we've seen them drop when they dropped the last 5, we saw them have a lead, and then the lead has just evaporated in the second half, and then the other team just steals all the momentum and they just can't get back into it. We didn't see that this time. Their defense was on point. They stuck in it, and Northern Kentucky made a run at the end of the game, and it looked like Northern Kentucky had the momentum, and then the Dons shut it down, and they only allowed 2 field goals in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, they held Northern Kentucky to 35.8% from the field, 3 for 18 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. Great perimeter defense there. The game really came down to the hardest working man in America.
We need someone to get that. We need some NIL deal with. We don't have any sort of money to do this, but Eric Mulder, the hardest working man in America.
Yeah, he had a block which led to a layup with about with a minute 13 left,
and
then he made several free throws down the stretch, which kind of clinched it.
You know, he's a guy who, like, just add a 0 onto all of his stats is what it feels like he actually did.
Right. He didn't have very many points, but the points that he had were crucial to the win. I mean, they probably don't win this game without
that block to the fast break layup made the game. He's just so big for this team. I don't know, like, obviously I don't know what that locker room's like, but I feel like he's just got to be such a steady presence and just such a steady person to rely on, because he's always going to give it his all. So Eric Mulder, I mean, just great performance. The team just played pretty well, and I think the defense won them that game. Yeah. I
mean, it's
just good to see them back in the win column.
Yeah,
those 5 games. I mean, especially some of them where they had the lead, or like it was a close game, and then they let it get away from them on the defensive end, and they couldn't stop the other team. Just hurt so bad, and to see that get flipped on this one was refreshing to see for them. So this 5-5 is, they've got some work to do in the back half of the season, but that Horizon League tournament, they should be feeling good.
Yeah. A team that also is probably feeling a little good after this week was Evansville. They finally got another win without Hummerkaus. They dropped a couple. They really dropped quite a few. I think they've won. It's only their first win without him since he's been out.
I
believe he did play against Valpo, which helped them win, but hasn't played since. They did move up in KenPom. They're at 226 currently, up from 238. They went 1-1 this week. They're still sitting 12-9 overall, 3-7 in the Valley. They lost at Northern Iowa by 7, 70-63, and then they got a 1 against. Got a win.
They won.
They
I
won.
thought you were gonna say like a 1-point win. I was like, that was not a 1-point win.
They won over Illinois State 58-54. So getting that illustrious Sans Hummerkaus win.
Well, yeah. And before we talk about these games, shout out to their beat writer and I guess Southern Indiana's beat writer, Anthony Christensen. He's moving to the SEC now. I think he's going to be covering Arkansas. following him on Twitter, interacting with him on Twitter. He seems like a great guy. So good luck to him, and we'll see who replaces him. I have not seen word on that, but he was a great follow. So
Yeah.
if you're in the SEC, I guess follow him.
Yeah. Against Northern Iowa, it's the third time in his career that you've seen Timmy scored a career high. He's just compounding his career high. He did
tying it. Just
yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
He had 20 points.
Yeah. He's been great in the last couple of games, and
he's a guy that really stepped up without Hummerkaus,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was necessary for someone to step up.
Another guy who's been stepping up is Chuck Bailey III and Tanner Cuff. Chuck Bailey had 14 against UNI, and Tanner Cuff had 13. And I don't know, they're just very nice offense off the bench, but they've been having so many slow starts. I don't know why they're not, at least one of them. I don't know why one of them isn't starting.
I don't know why Chuck Bailey isn't a starter. I'm with you. I think that's I've seen it talked about quite a few times.
And I know some coaches are kind of locked into a starting lineup, not like locked in, but they're just committed to the starting lineup. They always have the same starting lineup. Like Mike Woodson has done that for a long time. Some coaches do it matchup dependent, but I mean, I feel like you want to have two of your better scorers on the court when the game starts,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do.
I would like to
with
see
you
them
on that.
start so that they don't fall behind. But I mean, the first game, the UNI game, was basically down to the wire. It was a 7-point game, but it was pretty close. I mean, for like the last 6 minutes, it felt like it was within grasp. They just couldn't close it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 5-point game with 3 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this game, to me, comes down to the points off turnovers. Both teams had 10 turnovers. Northern Iowa, they had 14 points off turnovers to Evansville's 4. So, either don't turn the ball over one or two less times if you're Evansville, or do a better job of making baskets on those turnovers from Northern Iowa. So
the Illinois State game, again, I was talking about those slow starts, and you're looking for some offense. I mean, they started 1 for 7 with 5 turnovers in that game.
Yeah, I mean, they even before they hit that basket, they were 0-4 for 3 turnovers. But I mean, one thing Ragland post game said this was a Valley game, right? It was very physical. It's a gritty game that was far from pretty. They found a way. He thought that their character was improved as a result of the game. Illinois State opened up. They were 10-2 to start the game. Evansville, they climbed back, right? So
yeah, and they were up like 10 at half, and then they held that lead for most of it. Illinois State made it close, but their defense just held on. So
helps that Evansville held Illinois State to 1 for 21 from 3 too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's move on. So let me just scroll for an eternity.
Valpo is next.
To get to Valpo, yeah. So Valpo, 9th in our power rankings this week. People are confused with the order we're going. We're hitting Valpo. So Valpo lost at Southern Illinois, 75-69, so a close game. And then they lost to Missouri State 81-70 at home. But their freshmen have been great.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me before we go into that, they're 6-15 overall, and they're 2-8 in the Valley. So not a great record, but it could be better. I mean, they've had close ones like we've seen these games, Evansville game. They're in these games, and they're doing it with a lot of freshmen. So
yeah, I mean, 6 of the 7 players that played more than 3 minutes were freshman or sophomore.
In which game?
Against Missouri State.
Yeah, and they started. That's the game where they started 4 freshmen for the first time in 40 years.
Yeah, it was. I don't want to say that shocks me, but it shocks me, just because. I don't know.
I mean,
40 years is a long time.
Yeah, but you figure, at smaller schools,
you've got guys that
people
are
are
staying,
staying for a long time.
That's fair.
Or they're down transfers that they're getting.
Yep, that's true.
But Southern Illinois, I mean, Cooper Schwieger had 20-7, and he's one of 5 freshmen in the country, averaging 12 points and 7 rebounds in conference play. So he's, I mean, like I said last week, I think he's going to be all MVC freshman team for sure. Isaiah Stafford had 16, and they were down 10 in the second half, and they were able to get it to 3, but Southern Illinois has just so much scoring power. I mean, they've got Xavier Johnson, who I think is like 3rd or 4th leading scorer in the country.
Yeah, he was
first at one point, but he had 27, and most of that was in the second half. So their last 4 losses, well, I guess 5 losses if you include the Missouri State game, were all single-digit losses.
Well, Missouri State was 11.
Oh yeah, you're right. Math.
Yep. But I mean, that's the thing to me was they shot terrible from the free throw line. They were 10 of 18.
Yeah.
They got, I mean, Southern Illinois they had 20 more makes from the free throw line. That's 10 points right there. I mean, they lost by 6. So math, if they make a couple more free throws and, momentum's a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, like you said, each of their last 4 losses have been single digits. They've lost 8 games by 9 points or fewer. So it's heartbreaking, really.
Yeah, I want to talk about Darius Diavero in the Missouri State game because he had 20-7. That's a career high for him. Yep. Just playing the point guard spot really well. The guy that you're seeing, can facilitate and score depending on what's needed, and it was both in this game.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially with, like we said, starting those 4 freshmen, looking at, him as to be like that older guy to kind of shepherd this team. And he took on that scoring load because Isaiah Stafford was out for family reasons. So you look at that and it's like, okay, if we can get a little bit more of that, obviously kind of scoring sometimes is deferred to Stafford because he's a high volume shooter, but he's looking really nice, as a compliment to Stafford and Schweiger, yeah. And who else had a great game? Where'd I put it? Jahari Williamson had 19 and 5 boards, so good game, offensively for a couple of people, but they got out rebounded by 15, 48-33, which is tough.
Yeah.
But you got anything else?
No, let's talk about IUPUI. They did go 0-2 this week. They stayed the same in KenPom. They're still holding strong at 361. 6-17 overall. They are 2-10 in the league. They lost to Youngstown State 78-50, and then lost to Wright State 83-76.
So before I have a couple of things here. The first thing that I want to talk about the Youngstown State game is not even just necessarily about the game, because they went. Before I talk about the game stats, the first thing I want to cover is they need a smaller venue.
Yeah,
I know the Farmers Coliseum is just like there, right? Like it's just it's
just there. Yeah.
I feel like it's just, I don't know why necessarily they play there. You know what I mean? But it's just, a nice venue, but it should not be where IUPUI is playing. They had, at the game against Youngstown State, their venue holds 6,800 people. There were 708 people at this game. And
it probably felt like even less because I'm sure a lot of those people were sitting in their assigned seats.
Yeah.
Which probably weren't necessarily all clustered together.
It's just I know they do, it's really cool when they do the stuff, where they their first game of the season, they had all the 3rd graders or whatever from Indy in attendance. And that's really, really cool. But if you want this team to be successful, they need to be playing at 2,500, 3,000 people
Yeah.
tops. And like,
Yeah.
you know, just the layout of Indy and like where it is and everything isn't great. And, you know, Indy or like IUPUI is it's not a school where people are spending a ton of time on campus either.
Yep.
It just, something needs to be done if they want to make that better, I guess. I don't know. That was my big thought on IUPUI is like every time I watch a game, I'm like, dude, it looks like a closed practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even against Wright State, they only had 720 people there. Like that's not good.
Wasn't that a noon weekend game or something? Maybe it was a Friday. I don't know. They also, I have not fact checked this, but it feels like they play more noon games than anyone in the country.
Yeah.
They're always playing at noon, and they have had like multiple weekday noon games. But they have like they kicked off the season with like an 11 a.m.
Yeah, they were the first game of the 2023-2024 college season.
Let me talk about the game a little bit. Bryce Monroe at 11, Jalen Counter had 10, at 0 for 14 from 3. They're 358th in KenPom in 3-point percentage. So that puts them at they're at 25.7%. That's 0.4% away from dead last. They're struggling to shoot.
Yeah,
but
that's saying something.
Which leads me to a free throw for you, Jaren. So they are 358th in 3-point percentage in KenPom. Can you name any of the top 3? Can you name 2? Can you name 2 of the top 3 3-point shooting teams in the country?
Indiana State up there?
Indiana State is 2. We have talked about another one today. There are 2 in-state teams that are in the top 3.
Butler?
Nope.
Purdue.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And number 1, Baylor. Baylor is shooting 42.1%.
I don't know why Baylor didn't even cross
Indiana
my mind.
State is 41.1%. Purdue is 40.6%. And this, I pulled the state off KenPom like 3 days ago, so it might have changed. And then 4th, the American Gangster, Will Wade, McNeese State, 40.5%. So those are the best 3-point shooting teams. That's after I saw that, I was like, I gotta look this up. I gotta see what the exact opposite of this is.
Yeah. Real quick about the Wright State game. Guy that I don't think we've said his name once this season. Kidtrell Blocker. Off the bench.
I mentioned him before and talking about stats, but randomly, intermittently.
Right. He's not a name that we talk about often when it comes to IUPUI.
Yeah.
He did have a career high 18 points off the bench. That was, I believe, second in scoring.
Yep. Counter at 19.
Yep. So good for Blocker for being a bench guy and popping off. Unfortunately, didn't help. Well, I mean, it helped. Unfortunately, it didn't like propel them to the win.
Yeah, I mean, again, they went 2 of 13 from 3 in this game.
Yeah.
So when Wright State goes 8 of 16, and they shoot basically the same number of shots and make 3 more free throws or something.
Yeah.
But they did a good job at stopping Tanner Holden. He only had 12. Unfortunately, Trey Calvin had 29. So
Right. That's burying the lead a little bit. But I mean, even after this game, Matt Crenshaw said, "Hey, it's like we fought.
Yep.
I liked how hard we fought to get back into the game. We didn't turn it over. Gave us a chance to win. We didn't necessarily shoot the ball well, but we gave ourselves a chance against a really good team." And I think that's true. I mean, this Wright State team almost beat Indiana.
Yep.
And IPUI was in it. They were down 13 at half, which doesn't necessarily help.
But they surged back in the second half.
They won the second half by 6.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at it as a game of 2 halves, they're 1-1.
And they're playing better team basketball. It just looks better. They just can't hit shots, unfortunately, and that's kind of sinking them. But I mean, until they can hit shots, things aren't going to go well. They just need to take whatever they did at
Purdue Fort Wayne.
Yeah, at Purdue Fort Wayne, just take that and replicate it everywhere. and that'll do it for him.
Yeah. Just go into every game with a chip on your shoulder against like it's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Southern Indiana
Mm-hmm.
also stayed the same in KenPom. They are 335. I knew this will be the last time we talk about because we're going through the power ranking order, and they were 11th this week. They did go 0-1. They're 5-16 overall with a 2-6 conference record. Lost to Western Illinois by 5. So another heartbreaking close loss. They, from a high level, it was 15-15 in points of turnovers. So that's something that I like to look at and bring up fairly often.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't lose that battle. They didn't win it, but they didn't lose it. And I think that's a good sign. It just shows life, right? Even if they're turning the ball over, they're converting on those chances.
Every time I watch a game, it feels like Jeremiah Hernandez goes to the line of 50,000 times.
Yeah.
And hits 50,000 minus 1 free throws or something.
Right. Yeah.
He hits almost all of them.
That'd be 49,999.
But he has the 33rd. Jeremiah Hernandez has the 33rd highest free throw rate in the country at 69.3. So basically, free throw rate is like you're shooting free throws how many times on every 100 shots you put up. So he's shooting a free throw on basically 70% of the shots he puts up. That's second in the state behind Zach Edey.
That's what I was going to ask.
But Zach Edey leads the state. For reference, he's 10th in the country in free throw rate. What do you think his free throw rate is? Jeremiah Hernandez is 33rd with a free throw rate of 69.3. What do you think Zach Edey's free throw rate is?
83.4.
Too high, Jaron. 81.
Dang.
81.
On the nose?
Yep, on the nose. It was before the Rutgers game. So they get to the line a lot because every time I watch, I was like, this dude's got to be up there. I think he's...
Well, we talk about it every week that he's... How many he hits, pretty much.
He's up in the top 10, I think, in like...
Percentage?
Attempts.
Oh, attempts. Okay.
Yeah, attempts or makes, maybe. Because he's just shot a ton. But another guy who was great was AJ Smith, had 12 and 9 boards. And I don't know, for the last 5 minutes, the deficit just hovered between like 2 and 6 points, and they just couldn't overcome it. And that makes it like this game wasn't a one possession game, but before this they're 0-5 in one possession games. And like they popped up that graphic near the end of the game. I was like, why they got to do that?
Yeah,
man, they just doomed them.
It was definitely not something you necessarily do, especially when there's still time on the clock. Just let the game end at least.
Yeah.
At least show it at the end because it could have haunted them.
Mm-hmm.
To some degree.
Yeah. Before we move on to Chitwood, I assume you don't have anything else on.
Nope.
The Screaming Eagles. Before we move on to Chitwood, I want to talk about 3-point percentage because I was fiddling around on KenPom one night for like 45 minutes, and I was just clicking around, looking at all these stats and everything, and I found that his minutes have gone down this year, yes, but Mason Gillis, as of Thursday, he had the 5th highest 3-point percentage in the country at 51%. So he's shot 51, he's made 26. So he's 5th highest in the country. Can you name the other Indiana player in the top 10? There's one more person in the state.
Swope?
No. Swope's not even in the top 100. There are 6. There are 6 Indiana players in the top 100. Swope's not one of them. You want to hit?
Yeah.
They haven't played in a while.
Ben Hummerkaus.
31 of 62, 50% on the nose. Next, so then you got Mason Gillis at 5, Ben Hummerkaus at 9. Next, Jalen Jackson at 66, 44.7%.
Okay.
Pierre Brooks from Butler at 71.
Pierre Brooks is who I would have guessed had you not given me the hint.
Mm-hmm. He's 44.7%, so he's tied with Jalen Jackson on percentage, but I think he's shot maybe less or something. I don't know how it worked there. Fletcher Lur's 85th at 43.8%, and then 88th.
Malik Renew.
No,
Dang.
an Indiana State player, Robbie Avila.
Heck yeah.
43.7%. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in the top 100 in Ken Pom, and 3-point percentage ain't bad.
No, that's
ain't bad. I looked it up and I was like, Swope's got to be up there, but he shoots a lot.
That's true.
He shoots a ton.
He's I guess his volume definitely
Yeah.
probably brings his percentage down.
Yeah, because he's like
It feels like
there.
he's shooting
He's
like 45,
yeah, he's
50% per game.
top
but-
one, maybe at least top 3 in MVC makes.
Yeah.
And like, top in the country in makes. He just has shot a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
You ready?
Yeah. Who is our Week 12 Jimmy Chitwood of the Player of the Week, Adam?
Jimmy Chitwood this week, Jaron, is someone that I am a big fan of. Jimmy Chitwood, Week 12, is Eric Mulder from Purdue Fort Wayne. We talked about him in how instrumental he was in their win at Northern Kentucky, right?
I mean, I said it. He's the hardest working man in America.
That needs to be put on a shirt. Eric Mulder's face, hardest working man in America. He doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, but when you watch him play, there's no one who works harder than him. He had a huge block down the stretch that led to a fast break layup on the other end, and he had 4 points, shot 100%. I think he's number 2. Yeah, he's third in the country in 2-point percentage at 75%, and he has the 6th highest offensive rating in the Horizon League. He had 3 blocks in that Northern Kentucky game, 5 rebounds, and at one point he was like leading the country in effective field goal percentage, where he was top 5. He is just like, he's efficient. He works harder than anyone else, and he just felt like he was Chitwood. He just embodied Chitwood this week.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's exactly what Chitwood is, right? Most of the time we've made Chitwood, someone who put a lot of points up on the board and helped the team win. I think this is a perfect example of him helping the team win, even though he didn't have very many.
And
he didn't have very many points, but his points mattered.
And they were at the perfect time.
Yeah.
So congrats to him. He's the hardest working man in America.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
We said it since our second game this year. We were like, that's the hardest working man in America right there. Just look at him. He goes up for a rebound, and he doesn't care if he's coming down. He's just gonna try and get that ball.
He doesn't care if he's coming down on his feet.
Yeah.
He throws his body on the line.
Yeah. Love him. All right, let's talk about next week, Jaron. What do you think? What games jump out to you in the state of Indiana?
Yeah, so jumping around a little bit, not in necessarily any specific order. Purdue, they play Northwestern. They play at Mackey.
Oh, okay.
So I listed it and kind of considered it as a bounce back game, not because Purdue's lost in the last couple of games, but because they're gonna take on Northwestern with a vengeance. They're looking at this game as like because it was an overtime loss.
Yes, by 4.
Yeah,
I think.
And they're
different at Mackey, just like Northwestern's different at Welsh Ryan.
Yeah, and I think that Purdue is definitely, they're going to come out hot, and they're going to try and pump Northwestern into the ground. So it is Purdue are 13-point favorites. I think that's a little generous. I think they should be not generous, the opposite of generous. I think it's
conservative.
Conservative.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. I think 13 points is, I think there's going to be like 25.
Yeah.
I think they're going to try and pummel Northwestern.
I don't expect, I don't know. I expected them to have trouble with Northwestern at Northwestern just because Boo Booey's a demon.
Yep.
But they should be fine at home. So I'm definitely have eyes on that game, because the Big Ten race might come down to who drops a game at home.
Yeah.
If Purdue or Wisconsin drops a game at home, that might be, the death sentence for their.
Speaking of Purdue and Wisconsin dropping a game at home, another game I'm watching, Purdue plays at Wisconsin on the 4th.
Yeah.
Purdue are their 2-point favorites. They could be, I think, based on how the rest of the week shapes out, there's a chance that Wisconsin is still leading by a game
Yeah,
or by
I don't
at least
know.
half a game.
I don't know
in the
if
Big
they
Ten
play.
standings.
I'll
Wisconsin
check it
does
for you.
have 2 games this week.
Okay.
They will play before Purdue plays before they play Wisconsin.
And
obviously, Northwestern.
And Wisconsin does go to Pinnacle Bank. Dude, Wisconsin. It's tough. Wisconsin has to go to Pinnacle Bank and then have Purdue at home.
Yeah.
At least they're at home against Purdue.
Right. But they're definitely Big Ten first place
It might
stakes on the line in this game.
We might come the end of this week and say like, okay, they're tied in the Big Ten, and it's going to come down to the final game of the season, Wisconsin at Purdue.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I mean, that's going to be a tough week for Purdue. They can't overlook that Northwestern game. They can't be thinking about Wisconsin.
Yeah.
For me, I'm looking at Purdue Fort Wayne at home against Youngstown State. They're +1 in that game, so they're 1-point underdogs. They're projected to lose, but they've got to get past Milwaukee at home. So I'm glad they're at home twice this week. They got to win both of those and get 7-5 and try and get close to this conference race again.
Yeah. We do have a Valpo Evansville in-state matchup. We'll see if they're playing at the Arc up in Valpo. We'll see if Hummerhouse comes back for that. I'm not sure
Valpo's
that it's
favored.
likely, but
No, Evansville is favored, which is surprising to me because it was a 1-possession game, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've kind of figured some things out without Hummerhouse, but Valpo's playing really well.
Yeah.
And they're playing at home. So, I mean, if we were a betting show, my money would be on Valpo, but it's going to be a good game nonetheless, I think.
And then another game that's interesting to me is Notre Dame pooped on Virginia earlier this season by like 21. Yeah. That was at home. Notre Dame does travel to Virginia this week. They are 11-point dogs. I think that 11 points is generous.
Yeah.
That's I got my phrasing right.
I don't know.
Time.
Virginia, I mean,
Virginia's a wild card.
They've taken
team.
a lot of 20-point losses this year, but I don't know. You feel like no way Tony Bennett's going to let you do it to him twice.
Yeah.
Especially at home.
Yeah. But I think that it's going to be a closer game than 11 is really what I mean. Whether it's one way or the other, Notre Dame just needs this is a make it close game. It's got to be close. And selfishly, I want Notre Dame to pull it off because they,
of course,
need a big win.
I want the only game where I'm not rooting for the only game where I'm not rooting for Indiana to win all of them is Evansville Valpo because one of them has to lose.
Yeah, right. But I think this is a very important game for the momentum of Notre Dame's season.
Yeah, and then the last one, okay, so Indiana needs to win both. That's just a straight up fact. They have Iowa at home, and Iowa has been a curse for IU under Mike Woodson. Iowa just dumps on IU or makes a last second shot in the Big Ten tournament. So they got to win they have to win against Iowa at home, and then they have to win at home against Penn State. Like you cannot drop either of these games.
Yeah, these are must wins.
Yes,
100%.
absolutely. They are absolutely must wins. And then the last one for me, Indiana State home looking to get revenge against Drake. They're 4-point favorites. If this one's not a sellout, then I'll be a little bit disappointed. It's got to be close to a sellout because Terre Haute's paying attention. The city's rallying behind this team, and I think the state's starting to realize that this is the second best team in the state, and it's the most fun.
Yeah.
And people want to watch. And this game has, if they can get this win, then they are going to be 2 games ahead of Drake in the conference standings at the very least. So they got to win this. I think they will as well.
Let's talk about what's going on in the other 49. The 49 less important states.
Yeah, dude. Tony Stubblefield has my dream job. What the heck, man?
Unemployed?
Yeah, a fired coach. He didn't even have to finish the season.
Yeah.
They just fired him. And we're like, here's millions. Go sit on the couch.
That's I think should be anyone's dream job, to be honest.
I'll coach, dude. They're looking for DePaul. I'll coach. I'll do it.
If you need to fire me at the end of the season,
you're the worst.
By all means,
you're the worst Power 5 job out there. I'll take it. I'll take it.
We will step up to the plate.
Yeah. Tag team. We'll job share.
Yeah. Yeah. Co head coach.
Yes. So we'll email this to their AD. The most fun game of the week was Denver beat South Dakota in a double overtime game that was 111 to 110. Tommy Bruner, for South Dakota, is the nation's leading scorer. He had 49 points and the game-winning steal that led to the game-winning shot. So just absolute dog right there.
Yeah. It's talk about clutch, and then kind of running through some of the other big games this week. Auburn, who we've talked about pretty highly, is here and there, is they dropped 2 road games. So they're road games, so take that as you will. But they lost to Bama by 4, lost to Mississippi State by 6. Number 24 Colorado State also dropped 2 road games. They lost to Nevada by 13. Then they lost to Wyoming by 3.
Mm-hmm. In Evanston, they need to build the Boo Booey statue.
Oh,
yesterday.
Yeah, last year.
He needs to. He. I don't know. I mean, my Northwestern basketball lore is non-existent, but he has got to be the most, if not the best, the most impactful. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Like he deserves a statue. They beat number 10 Illinois by 5. That's the same Illinois team that IU almost beat, not hitting a single 3. So I don't know. That's a rivalry. Every game Illinois plays is a rivalry game, obviously, but that's like a legitimate rivalry
Northwestern Illinois.
Yeah. I don't know why Illinois is looking for rivals when they literally have an in-state team in the same conference. Like, come on, dude. Michigan's not like, hey, Nebraska, you're our rivals. They're like, oh, Michigan State, we hate you.
Right.
And then the whole football thing with Ohio State. But Oregon State beat number 9 Arizona by 3 on a buzzer beater. And, it was either going to overtime or they won, and they got it. So Arizona's a befuddling team, to say the least. They have good wins, and they have, they played Purdue pretty well, and then they have some weird losses like Oregon State. So stop taking dumps all over Purdue's resume, please.
Yeah. We also had a triple overtime thriller. ECU beat number 15 Baylor 105 to 102. So a lot of overtime games this week.
A lot of free basketball.
You love it.
Triple free basketball hits. Like it just hits.
It does.
Down in the A10. Sure. Richmond beat number 16 Dayton by 5. Is it my fault because I said that they could be like an Elite 8 Final Four team last week? No.
I think that
everyone was saying that, dude.
A lot of people were saying that Dayton has Elite 8 potential.
They were like, pump the brakes, guys. No, we were trying to fly under the radar. We're going to lose to Richmond. So Richmond, I think, leads the A10 now because that was the battle for first place. And then UAB beat Memphis, number 19 Memphis by 9. Memphis should probably be out of the AP poll now. They could have been last week. They stayed in. They probably will be now since they lost to UAB.
Yep. But
they might have a losing record in conference right now. They're 4-3. So they've dropped 3 straight.
They're on the fritz.
So luckily Memphis,
they're trending down.
Yeah, luckily Memphis has 228 Rice next. So
okay, that'll give them.
They should be fine.
Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about this week.
Mm-hmm.
What's our Monday game of the day?
Well, we're big fans of the horns down symbol here. Side note, did you see that BYU had some students in the student section with shirts that spelled horns down, and they the administration made them take them off and change their shirts? They literally were like, no, that's just, that's disrespectful. Get that out of here. Horns down all day.
100%.
Dude, if Purdue goes anywhere, they should say boiler down.
Yeah.
That's and Purdue's not gonna be like, no, please, don't do that. It's just horns down all day. So our Monday game of the day is number 4 Houston goes to Texas. We saw Texas get a couple of wins. I know they don't jump up and down like they won the national championship, but be on the lookout for when they play number 4 Houston on Monday at 9 p.m.
Yep. And then staying in the state of Texas for our Tuesday game of the day, we've got 20 Texas Tech currently, at the time of recording, unranked TCU. They play at 7 p.m. That'll be a really fun game. We mentioned it.
It could be a ranked game.
Yeah, it could be a ranked game. TCU did have that triple overtime thriller that we talked about. So, and TCU is playing really good basketball right now. Texas Tech always is playing fun basketball. So, be on the lookout for that on 7 p.m. on Tuesday.
Wednesday, we are going to the Big East. Providence is at number 1 UConn at 8:30. And we need UConn to win so that Purdue doesn't have the number 1 curse when I guess the week after. Yeah. So when Indiana goes to Purdue, so maybe we do want them to have the number 1, or maybe we don't. Depends on if you think we're an Indiana podcast or a Purdue podcast. We just want a good game. But UConn is playing at home against Providence. They should defend home court. Wednesday's a weaker slate of games, but I mean, it's always nice to watch the number 1 team in the country. So, see if they can hold on as the number 1 team.
We talked about Wisconsin playing Purdue at the end of the week, but on Thursday, our game of the day is Wisconsin playing at Nebraska. You've seen Nebraska pretty much beat anyone that comes into town, right?
Yeah, they are good at Pinnacle
They don't
Bank.
care if there's a number next to your name. They don't care if you're winning the conference. It's a tough place to play if you're a team going into Nebraska. So be on the lookout for that with huge Big Ten race implications. If Wisconsin drops that is on 8:30 on Thursday.
Friday, we got some action for you. Toledo at Akron at 9 p.m. So stay home, don't go out anywhere, and watch a battle they should both be playing to decide who's going to be in sole possession of first place in the MAC. So, these are teams that Ball State's going to be trying to beat in the conference tournament, in the MAC tournament. So if you like some action, which we do, check out
action, guys.
Toledo at Akron at 9 p.m. on Friday.
Saturday, another day of what feels like 200 games. But if you can only watch one game, we recommend number 5 Tennessee at number 6 Kentucky, 8:30 p.m. tip-off. This is very much an SEC contender game.
Yeah.
It has huge conference implications. It is a top 10 matchup, which we don't see as often as we probably should.
Yeah, and you've got a defensive team in Tennessee against an offensive team in Kentucky. How are those young guards and how is that young team in Kentucky going to handle the what's the word I'm looking for? Smothering defense of Tennessee? I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know. As long as we get a good game and not like the 80 foul game we got in Maui with Purdue.
Yeah. Yep. So let's
Sunday, we're going to wrap it up. We are talking about UNC Greensboro at Furman at 2 p.m. Last week we saw Furman, I guess it would be 2 weeks now, right? Yep. I don't know. We saw Furman take down Samford, who was first in the SoCon. So we've got a SoCon matchup for you. So we're mixing it up. And shouts to our guy, Elliot Crow from Bracket Busters. He's been talking about the SoCon a lot. And a lot of people think the Furman Paladins, top 10 mascot name for sure, but think they're a lot better than their record shows, and they're trying to make some noise in the SoCon, so watch out for them.
All right,
you got your game? I've got
my game for guess the game of the week. Last week you had me go first, so this week you get to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So my guess the game. Okay, so I have a couple of clues. So I'm going to give you the first clue, and if you don't get it, I will give you the second clue. All right?
Okay.
So my first clue is, for my guess the game of the week. For my guess the game of the week, my clue is, this is the give me liberty or give me death game.
At Boston University at Holy Cross?
That's a good guess. No, it's not Boston University. So I know what you're thinking. Boston, give me liberty, give me death. Here's my second clue.
Is it Boston College and St. John's?
No. That's a good one. My second clue will probably help you. There's an arachnid in his wool. So the first clue I felt like you either knew it or you don't. This one gives you a little bit more of a hint to each team. There's an arachnid in his wool.
Is Richmond one of them?
Richmond.
Is it
his wool? Pronoun here is important.
I know.
Got Richmond.
I can't even remember who's in Richmond's conference. My
tell
mind
you
is
this.
literally blanking.
I'll give you a third clue. It's an intra-city matchup. Both these teams are in Richmond.
Virginia Tech? No.
No, you're so close. Change that second word. It's
Virginia State?
Nope.
Virginia.
VCU.
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 The VCU sheep.
The Rams. So the arachnid,
Rams.
they are Richmond Spiders. In his wool, the Rams.
Oh, male sheep.
Yeah.
Is a ram.
So on Saturday, Richmond at VCU on Saturday, February 3rd at 4 p.m.
Give me death.
So that's a good thing. Patrick Henry actually gave his "Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death" speech in Richmond in 1775.
I would have never known that. I would have never known that.
My like alternative clue that I was gonna give was gonna be one that I thought either my dad would get when he watches, or people would think I'm kind of sus, because I was gonna say it's the battle for the fallen capital or something, because Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy. It was a battle for Richmond, but I was like, I don't want to go that route.
Yeah.
All right, let me get your game, Jaron.
All right. So we have a religious tea party.
A religious tea party. Okay, so I'm going to assume tea party means... Wait. Okay. Tea party makes me think Boston, which makes me think Boston College, which would be the ACC. Can't even... I'm locking up. Am I on with... No, let me guess a game. Am I on the right track with Boston College?
It is not Boston College.
Okay. Is it Boston?
It is Boston.
Dude, I don't even know what conference Boston is in. Religious tea party. It was like, I was thinking like the Providence Friars, but they're obviously not in the same conference.
It's the only hint I have for you.
Duquesne at Boston?
No.
Okay, not the Deacons. I don't know. Dude, religious tea party. I can't think of any religious mascots.
I have quite literally already talked about this matchup.
Oh my gosh, I'm not even going to be able to remember it. No. Did I already say, is it St. Joe's?
Nope.
St. John's?
Nope.
I don't know. You got to tell me.
Boston University at Holy Cross.
At Holy Cross. You thought we picked the same game?
I thought we picked the same one.
Not this time.
And if it was, I did have a backup. So for funsies, I'll give you the backup.
Okay.
We've got beachy farmers. So farmers that spend time on the beach visiting salesman farmers. Farmers that are salesmen.
What? Beachy farmers?
It's Texas A&M Corpus Christi, which is on the beach.
Okay.
At Texas A&M Commerce.
Oh. I wouldn't have ever gotten there, dude. You picked two schools as your alternative. You picked two schools in the Texas A&M system.
Yep.
It's crazy.
I looked at it. I was like, man, this is just too perfect that they're playing each other.
It wasn't Texas A&M Corpus Christi in the first four last year. I feel like I watched them play in the first four.
They did play last year.
That's
how I remembered. That's how I realized that at that point I didn't realize that Corpus Christi was had a team.
Yeah. Man.
But,
dang. So we're both. So I'm 1-1, and you're 0-2.
Yeah, I suck at these. I struggle because like I can get one team.
Yeah.
But I struggle. I don't, because we pick so like absurd. We've picked small conferences in both of these times.
It's almost harder now because like I don't want to pick a big conference, right? Because those are obvious, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like then, you know, you get one part of it and you're like, I don't know who's in the same conference as this team half the time, or I do, and that's
where I struggle. Is I just like
it's like okay,
I was like okay,
it'll be a lot of fun in the beginning of the year when we're getting like
bye games,
and
there's an obvious like power conference team.
Yeah, you could have just like Spartan on Spartan, and you know it's like Michigan State versus some other
UNCG.
Spartan. Yeah, you know,
I believe UNCG or Spartans.
So it's like, but it's fun. I like it. I hope that the people like it. I hope that someone listening got both. That'd be impressive. Honestly, they were probably screaming at their headphones like, dude, he literally just said Boston at Holy Cross.
That's why like
I was just so locked in on. I was like, no, you didn't say Richmond VCU. Like, yours, your guess. I was like, wrong.
That's why I stuck with it instead of going to the A&M Corpus Christi and Commerce. But
yeah, I mean that's all I've got. You got anything else?
Yeah, just like we said at the top of the show, you know, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, give us a rating, preferably 5-star on your favorite.
Let us know what you think. Find us on Twitter, the State of B-Ball on Twitter, State of Basketball everywhere else.
We interact with our followers quite a bit, so go ahead and if you need to chirp at us on Twitter or like our stuff, share our stuff, and
remember,
join in.
Eric Mulder, artist, working man in America. Print the shirts.
If you own a t-shirt company, let us know and we'll work on distribution.
Be nice. That'd be a sick shirt. John Kaufman, we need it to happen. We need the Eric Mulder, hardest working man in America shirt. We'll make up a mock. Send it to him.
We'll draft it up for you.
All right, man.
You know, with that, the clock is showing 000, so it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in on State of Basketball. See you next week. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.